Hello and welcome to this podcast, brought to you by Treasury Today. In July, Treasury Today's 11th Women in Treasury APAC Forum took place at the Four Seasons Hotel in Singapore. The event was attended by Treasury professionals from some of the region's largest companies, as well as their banking and technology partners. Opening the event, Meg Coates, joint publisher and head of operations at the Treasury Today Group, welcomed attendees to this year's forum.
Treasury Today's Women in Treasury initiative was established to pioneer gender equity in our industry and to create a community where we share our experiences and encourage each other's professional development.
Next came a fireside chat with Sophie Jackson, joint publisher and head of strategic content at Treasury Today, and Manoj S. Bhatia, managing director, global head MNC banking at MUFG. Manoj spoke about the evolution of the bank's commercial banking business and the growing focus on diversity and inclusion.
So increasingly, while we are of course very relevant to Japan, we are very relevant to the Japanese corporates, I think the role that we play with global corporates and in our commercial banking business, especially in Southeast Asia, is becoming very, very relevant. What that has actually meant is there is a huge amount of influx of talent that is coming in from outside. And hence, within MUFG, diversity, inclusion, and equity is becoming a very, very significant theme.
He went on to talk about the importance of leadership and discussed some insights from P&G's former CEO, A.G. Lafley, about authentic leadership.
When he says authentic leadership, the first principle of authentic leadership was, what is your purpose as a leader? Yeah. Not the firm's purpose, not where you're going with your strategy, not what your vision is. Why do you as an individual want to be a leader, right? So I think it is very important, if you want to be a good leader, to be very clear on your purpose for wanting to be one. From there on, and this is the one that is very closest to me and I try to live by that, his view is leadership comes from the heart, right? His point being, to be a good leader, you need to have passion. You need to have compassion for your colleagues, for your partners. You need to have the empathy to relate to customers, to come back and deliver what customers want and to earn their trust. And lastly, he says that you need to have the courage to take tough decisions.
Manoj also spoke about how the conversation around diversity has changed over the last 30 years.
When I compare back to what, again, 90s India, I think there was, and again, I'm speaking from a banking experience standpoint, I think bankers, the alpha male was a very dominant animal.
I can imagine.
You know, when you started in the 90s. And it was okay in banks for men to be aggressive. It was okay for men to actually throw their weight around, right? I think when I now look at the environment that we are operating in, I think the fact that there has been this conversation, the fact that there is this dialogue, it is something which is now a much more accepted norm that what was good then is not good now.
Sophie opened the panel discussion by introducing this year's panellists, including two winners of Treasury Today's 2024 Within Awards, Sugandha Singhal and Marie Hong.
I'm very happy to be joined today by Sugandha Singhal, Vice President, Head of Treasury at SRF Limited, Jennifer Doherty, Global Head Business Enablement and Change, Transaction Banking Corporate and Investment Bank at Standard Chartered, Marie Hong, Asia Head of Treasury at Manulife Financial Asia, and Mei Pang, Co-Head of Payments Corporate Sales, ASEAN at JP Morgan Payments. Sugandha.
So my mother decided to send across me for my higher education to a charitable institute. It's called as the Albag Educational Institute. So for my 5 years of postgrad and undergrad, I just paid a fees of just approximately $600 US dollars. So it is a very low cost kind of thing. The best beauty was there were so many people from different walk of life who were coming and volunteering and teaching. They were retired professors, retired people from jobs, and some people who had actually left their job and they, just out of passion to teach people who wanted to learn. One such professor walked up to him and said, "Ki, you are doing so much for us, traveling all the way every holiday and teaching us, How do I ever repay it back to you?" And then he said one thing, Sugandha, you just need to do one small thing. that going ahead, you will have multiple opportunities where people will need your help. Just don't shy away. If I have helped you once and you helped 10 more people, my work is successful. That is how you repay me.
Maria, I want to come to you now. I mean, Meg touched on this in the award presentation, but you began your career holding roles in your native Korea. How do your early experiences compare to later on working outside of your native country?
The perception about the successful woman, like in the company, back then was that if the woman is in junior level and the young, those the successful woman is that the harmonizer, and then someone who do the job without speaking up too much about their opinion, Then, those women, the successful woman at the senior level, senior management, then the people's perception is usually fighter or warrior or someone who sacrifice, their life and the family life, to devote themselves to the work. But after, I left Korea and then, I went to New York, New York, of course, that is a melting pot of, different cultures. So I think, I didn't have, this kind of, the experience. But when I came to Hong Kong, I was actually surprised that Hong Kong is Asia, but still, the one thing I love about Hong Kong, I think Singapore is similar, that, the woman empowerment is very, very strong in the personal life and the work life.
May, I want to come to you now. Tell me about your early experiences in your career and how you think that's defined your professional journey to now.
Honestly, banking wasn't my first choice. When I was a child, I wanted to be a shoe designer so I can appreciate the nice shoes that you're wearing. So that was my dream, right? Going to banking was just never a choice. But I guess at the beginning stage, and when you actually met, that situation and you need to find a job, I was lucky enough, right? So luck, good fortune, right? There was actually an opportunity to work at that time with Chase, and that was actually a 1-year contract position. So I took that, and I guess what I could actually think about as I look back, right, is really about seizing that opportunity when it's there. So I think going through this journey, right, I realized something. There's a lot of opportunities I actually received from different people. And at this stage of my career is where I felt like, it's all about giving back and really developing and trying to give opportunities to the younger talents, the analysts and associates within the organization as well. So I'm actually a big supporter of that.
Jennifer, I want to come to you now. We've talked a lot around career development and the concept of pivoting, which I know is something that you're very accomplished in understanding. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I've pivoted a lot, I would say. When I started my career, I don't even remember applying for the bank I ended up working in, if I'm perfectly honest. Did a few years in Ireland. The lovely financial crisis hit in 2007, which killed the Celtic Tiger, which had been doing really well. I thought, what was I supposed to do now? So I upped sticks and moved to London with about 4 weeks thought, rented out my house and kind of arrived and thought, well, what am I supposed to do now? I got a job in an FX firm because I never worked in markets before and I just wanted to understand it. And then from there, that's when I moved into transaction banking. And I suppose just been really open to whatever the universe might present for you. And maybe it is luck or maybe it's just being in the right place at the right time. And I don't have that. That's exactly the role I want in 5, 10, 15 years time. I have let's just see how far I can go. Let's just see how much more I can learn. Let's see how much more I can do. And then just taking the opportunities as they kind of present themselves.
Reflecting on topics that have been highlighted in Treasury Today's Global Equity Study, sponsored by Standard Chartered, panellists spoke about age-related challenges, including the menopause.
One of the age-related chapters that women face, and I've been pushed by our community to speak about, is the menopause. This is something that organisations need to be aware of and able to accommodate, and also to kind of have an open communication of what different people need. How is this something that you guys approach as employers?
We've talked about this a lot, right? Because in Standard Chartered, we offer medical cover for menopause. So for the testing, for the medication that you might need or may not need and all of that, which you wouldn't have heard of 5 years ago. Who would have covered that in a kind of a health policy?
The the conversation turned to the topic of neurodiversity and mental health.
Mamie, I want to come to you. I touched on the issue there of neurodivergence. So this is a very hot topic at the moment. Lots of people are kind of identifying themselves as being neurodivergent, and organisations are trying to understand how to deal with it. What is the role of employers in celebrating and supporting difference and in looking after neurodivergent people's needs, which can be very different in the workplace?
Yeah, so I guess neurodivergent, I think to me, is where this is the most misunderstood group, right? Because they are not, there's no like physical disabilities in a way. And when people are just not aware that this person may actually be neurodivergent, right, in that sense.
One of the issues that I'm interested in is a connection with mental health, which is also something we're talking about a lot. Neurodivergent people tend to experience massive mental health problems in corporate settings because they're masking. They're not allowed to say, I can't work in this environment, it's too overstimulating for me. So they try and make themselves work there to get ahead and to get to become a CFO and so on. And in doing so, they really destroy their mental health and the well-being of their family. So I think there's a strong link and a crossover. Jen, how do you approach this, and what have you learned about this space in your leadership roles?
You know, being authentically you, and that includes your flaws.
Yeah,
and we all have
absolutely.
lots of them, right? And so that could be something that you struggle with. The more open other people are, then the more we'll encourage people to talk out loud about it.
Well, I think mental health, is a lot more spoken about these days, right?
Yeah.
Because there's no longer, I wouldn't say there's no longer a stigma. I think some people still feel unsafe to actually talk about it.
Sugandha, one of the tasks that I've set everyone on their talking points is to think about our personal power and how we're measuring success. So how is that something that you've approached?
I think so for every individual, every walk of life, every day there is some small success you are getting. I think you should cherish that, be thankful, and then move ahead and say, okay, what is the next step? And if you can plan big, very well. If you can't, then the smaller successes are also success. Cherish them.
I think that's the biggest success or the earnings that I earned from my career. So no one has the very bright and the straightforward, the successful career life. Everyone is in the dark times, and the most important thing is how quickly we recover and move forward.
We would like to thank this year's panellists, Marie, Sugandha, May and Jennifer, and everyone who joined us on the day. Thanks also to MUFG for sponsoring our networking reception, to our sponsors JP Morgan and Standard Chartered, and to our supporter Barclays. If you would like to hear more of our podcast episodes, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if you would like to be part of the conversation, you can join our Women in Treasury community on LinkedIn.